On today's show, we welcome Iris Angellys. Iris is an author, artist, mentor, healer, workshop facilitator, chiropractor, and applied kinesiologist. In her book, Your Body is the Portal to Your Soul, she combines her own lived experience and insights with knowledge she's gained from seeing over 25,000 patients in nearly 30 years of practice. Iris has a deep passion to empower people to thrive in their lives and bodies so they can offer the world the gift of their unique soul frequency. Iris, it is an absolute pleasure. Welcome to the Deep Life Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
We are thrilled, and you are in lovely Australia, which you live with your husband and cat. I know that you had mentioned that too. I love it. Well, let's dive deep, because I have a feeling we are going to get very deep into all of these concepts with our body and the soul. And speaking, for myself, but also Dan, we could not agree more with the title of your most recent book, Our Body as this vessel of our soul, the divine intelligence that so desperately is seeking to work through us. So please kind of enlighten us with the knowledge and wisdom that you've gained about our bodies as this being that we inhabit, and how we can better, understand it to use it in this third dimensional world of reality that we're all in.
Yeah. So like you said before in the bio, I've been a chiropractor for nearly 30 years and an applied kinesiologist for 20 of those. So I've had a lot of opportunity to interact with people's bodies and start understanding what they're trying to tell us. So my observation is that most of us, as we grow up, as we get socialized in our cultures, we basically get socialized into our bodies as a tool at best. It's the bit that gets you from A to B, and it gets you to allow to experience these different things. If something feels unpleasant, then ignore it, or if you can't ignore it, suppress it, take a pill, keep going. And if you take that to its logical conclusion, it basically means that eventually the body will go, do you know what? I really need some help here. And it's going to be very emphatic about how it's trying to get our attention, basically. It's funny, I was recently at a book fair and people would approach me and go, oh yeah, your body's a portal to the soul. Oh yeah, you got to eat right, and you got to drink water, and you got to exercise. And I was like, you have not got what I'm saying with this title, right? Because it still comes from the point of view of, oh, my body is my tool. I own my body. When you're in that mindset, it basically means that you basically ask your body to store a whole bunch of energies or frequencies, right? So one of my things is everything is energy. If you break down matter, it's really just really, really slow energy, yeah? The atoms that make up our bodies are mostly space, with tiny little packets of energy moving around. So if everything is energy, so are emotions and habits and beliefs and trauma and all that sort of stuff. So if we don't consciously interact with our body is ending up having to store all these energies in there. And often what ends up in the body is what we don't know that we don't know. Yeah. Because at the time it's too hard to deal with. We don't have the tools, we don't have the resources, whatever you want to call it. But that trauma or that energy or that belief or that emotion gets stuck in there. And then they're going to be, our bodies or our subconscious mind are going to present with these healing opportunities saying, do you know how you put that away for later? Well, now it's later. How about if we deal with that now? And mostly go, oh, no, I can't deal with that now. And you stuff it down and it gets bigger and bigger, right? So one of the ways that could look is, you're having a discussion with your partner, something gets said and you just completely explode, which is totally out of proportion with what was just said, And that's because you're not just reacting to that tiny little incident, you're reacting to everything that's gone before. So like writing a book is really a very deeply developing experience. So I have, through the book, learned much more in depth about what it is I'm actually writing about. So one of the things I encourage people to do is to understand our bodies as a pet. If you have a pet that you really love, what you do, You give it the right food. You give it a soft place to sleep. You give it playtime. You give it exercise. You give it sunshine. You give it fresh water. You give it affection. You give it all these things so that your pet can thrive. Now, that to me is a functional relationship, is a relationship of unconditional love. Yeah. What do we do with our bodies? Right? Our bodies are an intelligent entity with their own needs and desires for, different foods or water or health, or, they need certain things in order to feel well and to thrive. Well, most of us keep moving the goalposts, right? It's like body says, you're on the computer, for example, you're on the computer, and your body goes, I'm thirsty. And you go, yeah, later. Yeah, later. And then I'm thirsty. Yeah, later. I'm aching now because I've been sitting still for this long and I'm designed to move. Yeah, later. And then we get up, and at the end of the computer session, we're thirsty, we're dehydrated, we're achy, we're grumpy. Our need for rest is going to be much bigger than if we actually just got up the first time and got a glass of water. Yeah. So we keep moving the goalpost. Oh, just finish this. Like, to me, the I'll just is a really good word to pay attention to, because if I say I'll just, instead of getting up and doing what my body says, the just that should take 5 minutes takes 20. It goes wrong. The printer jams. I get really angry and frustrated, and then I'll need 2 hours of rest instead of just 10 minutes because I just spent all this energy on credit, and then I've got to pay it back with interest, right? So if we can step into a relationship of curiosity with our bodies, I've got these sensations happening. What is my body trying to tell me? And if you look at people like Louise Hay and other people who've written books like that, bodies are very metaphorical. So what's your language in terms of what you say to yourself? Can I think of an example? No. Okay, I have to move on.
Metaphorical, like in a body sense?
Well, like if somebody says, I have, it's a pain in the neck,
Oh,
so
sure.
if you get a pain in your neck, who or what is being the pain in the neck? Like, that's just, or, if you're constipated, if you get diarrhea a lot, do you have problems with knowing when to let go and how well to let go? Like in that way, it's a metaphorical thing. So the bit that is trying to get your attention with symptoms is also going to be, if you kind of say in words what your experience is, will probably give you a clue to what it is that you don't know. Yeah. It does take some practice, and everybody's use of language and everybody's metaphors are different. But, there are heaps of things, books and whatnot out there that can give you a starting point at least. And then as you get into it, it gets easier and easier to understand what the body's trying to tell us. But if we can be curious about it, going, I wonder why my knee hurts right now, or I wonder why my neck is sore. I wonder why I've got indigestion. What can't I digest? Literally, what's life offering me that I can't digest? Yeah. Instead of going, that's really annoying, I'm going to take a pill and keep going. Like, you're actually going to keep going into the direction of dysfunction rather than going back and going, well, my body loves me. My body wants to thrive. It's talking to me with symptoms right now. What can I do to answer that? And that's where kinesiology comes in really handy, because if you don't know, you don't know. Then if you can do your own muscle testing, or I think it's really useful to see a practitioner as well, because when you're in it, you don't have the perspective a lot of the time. Yeah, you're not listening to yourself in the same way. And, a practitioner that I've seen probably quite a few of those before and go, I recognize this pattern. So then you can start establishing a dialogue with your body and understand, okay, these are the things that my body needs. These are emotions I'm holding here, and those are the emotions I'm holding there. So there are different types of sensation that can happen in our bodies. So there can be the sensations that come from our basic physical needs, like for rest and exercise and water and food and affection and community and all those sorts of things. But emotions, a lot of the time, are also felt in the body as sensations. Yeah, for example, so if you've got grief, you might feel like your throat is really tight because you need to cry that grief out of your body. And if you don't do that, you might find, or for me personally, when I was growing up, I had this tightness. I couldn't run, so I had what would probably be called exercise-induced asthma. And it was because of grief that I didn't feel I was I was unable to express at the time. So got that tightness there, getting asthma. It's like, well, once I let down the track, released that grief and felt it, like that hasn't been a problem since, So the emotions can feel like physical sensations as well. Some people feel them in their bodies, and some people feel them sort of just beyond their bodies. So that can be a little bit different from person to person. But these emotions are also trying to tell us something about our lives. Their emotions are basically just feedback. It's like, does that work for me? Does that suit me? Does that make me thrive? Yes or no? Yeah. And then your body, or the sensations in your body, will tell you yes or no. So in our cultures, we have been trained to anything that's unpleasant is just not cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
And to me, if you really want to live a life of deep joy and deep connection and deep love and deep gratitude, you have to be willing to feel the unpleasant stuff. Yeah. It's
Yes.
The Prophet. You probably know the book The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. He has this really beautiful metaphor of, the lute that plays this beautiful music has been hollowed out with knives. So yeah, right. So you can
Yes. Oh, yeah.
only house as much beautiful stuff as you're willing to feel the bad stuff. In my view of the world, we are beings of love, we are beings of joy, we are beings of connection. That's our natural state. So if there is unpleasant stuff, it's not going to be there forever. It's going to be there, like with an unpleasant emotion. It's usually, a couple of minutes to a couple of days, and usually you'll get breaks from it. Like you feel some of it, and then you get a little rest until your body goes, okay, we're ready for the next wave now. And then you get another go, and then you have another rest. So it's, our bodies don't want to overwhelm us. They just want us to process and acknowledge what's going on. Yeah. So if we don't do that, that gets stored in our bodies as well. And eventually I think of it of the energy becoming so dense that it can become a physical disease. Yeah. So our bodies are trying to guide us through life. They're trying to give us feedback as to, what's most in alignment with us thriving. And if we ignore that, all these dense energies get stored in our bodies. And the end result is that for most people, it's my observation, most people sort of live sort of eyes and ears upwards. Yeah, they live in their minds, they live in their vision and their hearing and possibly their taste, but they ignore everything sort of from the chin down. Yeah, it's like they're not even in their bodies. And they can't be in their bodies because their bodies are full of stuff. They're full of dense energy. And the soul can't sit in those frequencies. So the more we're willing to sit with the uncomfortable, accept the things about ourselves and about our lives and about the world that we have been trained to feel is unacceptable, the more all those things can release, the more the soul can drop into our bodies, the more we can be present for our life, the more we can find joy, enjoy our lives. And all of a sudden, you're not just kind of going from birth to death and what happened in between was like, I don't know, to, wow, I had this incredible experience of beauty today, or I had this incredible experience of love today, or wow, my pet's fur is so soft, or like you can actually really experience what it is that you experience and take pleasure in this life. And that's when you can radiate out your soul frequency. Yeah. And you don't even need to do anything. You can just sit on the bus and people are going to get off the bus and go, I feel strangely elated right now. And that's just because they've sat in your energy field. Yeah. So as a culture, we've been conditioned into producing, performing, achieving at all costs, literally, like at the cost of your health, at the cost of your relationships, at the cost of you actually feeling joy in your life. And we need to go, okay, I'm not a human working. I'm not a human doing. Oh, look, I'm a human being. Yeah. And why do I work? I work to live. I work so I can nourish my life with all the other things that I want to experience, do and not do. I am going to give my body the rest it needs so that when we're out there doing stuff, it can feel vibrant and alive. Like that's a really interesting thing, like sometimes people say, oh yeah, I make sure I don't sleep more than 6 hours a day, because it's like, Well, where's the joy in that though? Like, do you not enjoy sleep for one? Like sleep's awesome.
Yeah.
And secondly, I call it lion time, like you watch a doco and you watch your lions and they just kind of lie there and flick their tails and play with their cubs. And then every 2 to 3 days they go out to hunt and eat and then repeat, right? And it's just this incredible life of leisure. I find it really interesting that we call it work-life balance, as if work isn't life. Where do most people spend most of the waking hours? Work.
Yeah.
So we need to reframe that into work-leisure balance, and we need to start actually really valuing leisure. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at some other cultures, I'm thinking of the Mediterranean culture where, dinner is an affair that takes a couple of hours and involves several dishes and lots of people and community and hanging out after eating. You sit at the table and you just chat and connect. I mean, or, like that's what we're meant to be doing. We live in the most wealthy and supported society ever in terms of like machines doing jobs that once upon a time we had to do by hand. Think about trying to do your washing by hand all day, every day, right?
Right.
Like, why do we still live as if, we're going to be chased by a saber-toothed tiger or something? We don't need to do that. We have the opportunity to really have leisure and enjoy and, think about things that aren't dealing with survival right now. And yet we're still in this produce, just keep running in the hamster wheel kind of situation. Like it's totally nuts when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, it really is. And you've said so much right now that I can't wait to dive into. And I think it's such a refreshing perspective that we really don't hear much in our society for sure. And even so many of the conversations that we have that on this show that are very much geared toward this idea of self-discovery and the evolution of consciousness. And I think people still aren't fully grasping this concept that you're saying, which really is the purpose of life. And I want to almost go back to the beginning. And I think it's really interesting that you were talking about this whole idea of sort of stewardship of our body and treating our body like it's our pet. And you said in the beginning that we come in and we perceive our body as a tool. And I would almost argue that even more people, before even getting to that elevated point of recognizing that they're not their body, most people think that they are their body.
That's right.
They're in this survival mode, and that that their body begins dying the moment they're born, and that it's all suffering, and that any little thing that goes wrong is just a nuisance that your body's getting in the way. And then we can even bring ourselves up to the level of, okay, I'm not my body, but I'm using this because it's my vehicle here. And that's a step up. But then it's such a huge step from there to get to this idea of I am gifted with the opportunity to experience this body as I'm here. And I can be a good steward of that because it isn't me, but it's also living. Because when you really pull back and think about it, my heart is beating, my skin and my cells are regenerating. There's tens of thousands of chemical reactions taking place and all these things happening in my body that I don't even know about. So it's
absolutely
living without me. It doesn't need me. So it's allowing me this beautiful opportunity to kind of come along for the ride so that I can observe the world from its perspective.
Yep.
It really changes the whole way that you perceive life, I think, when you can start to realize this.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, the body does and doesn't need us. It can function to a very large extent without our input. Yeah. I liken it to, you get in the car, you start driving, you arrive at your destination, you go, I don't remember driving. I was in tomorrow planning the day, or I was in yesterday's argument, or I was, designing jewelry, whatever I was doing, but it definitely wasn't present for the drive. I didn't see the things. And our bodies are like that. They can go, okay, well, you want me to go from here to here, I'll do that for you. And you can be off somewhere else in your mind doing things.
Yeah.
But there does come a time when the body runs out of resources. Yeah. And that's when it starts talking to us. And that's when we need to take conscious action. to give our bodies what they need. The other thing too is, what are the words that we use to speak to our bodies or to ourselves, right? Like if you look in the mirror and you go, oh, I really don't like the shape of my nose, or oh, look, my skin is getting wrinkly, or whatever it is, what the message or the chemicals in the body are then, oh, not good enough. You just don't measure up. You're just inadequate. You're not lovable as you are. You're just like, oh, you know. What does that do to our cells? Like our bodies consist of 50 trillion cells. 50 trillion individual citizens live in our bodies, and they all do the very best with the resources we have given them to thrive and to thrive as a community. Like that blows my mind. There's 7 billion people. Do we get on? Not so flash, right?
Right.
50 trillion cells, 50 trillion citizens in our bodies are working together to doing the thing that they're designed to do, to make this body what it is. And then we go, oh, yeah, not good enough, really. Like, you're a bit flawed, aren't you? You know, what about if we tip that on its head and we go, okay, so the shape of my nose might not be brilliant, but oh my goodness, I can smell things. Yeah, I can smell food. I can smell flowers. I can smell, you know, skin. I can smell my baby's skin. And it's giving me this incredible experience. Like, you know, as you probably know, smell is 80% taste. So I can taste all these different flavors because of my sense of smell. Like, wow, that's amazing. And the thing with these energies is it doesn't matter what it is that you choose to be grateful for. You know, it can be, oh, my hands are really clever. They can do these things. Or, you know, my hair's lush. Or it can be, you know, I can walk. Like if you think about feet and what they're able to do, it's absolutely incredible. Like the big toe joint takes like 4 or 5 times our body weight. That's just when we walk, let alone run, right?
Mhm.
Like it's phenomenal. So like, can we find a little something that we're grateful for and just really focus on that part and what it can do and how amazing it is that we have this part support. And that energy of gratitude is going to flood our whole bodies, right? Or even if you find something outside of ourselves that we're grateful for. I'm really grateful I've got a car that gets me reliably from A to B, or I'm grateful for my house because it's my home and I've got a roof over my head and I've got somewhere I can rest. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter, you know. But if we can just tune into the frequency of gratitude and allow that to flood our bodies, how good do our bodies feel? You know, it's like when you're in a relationship, I alluded to that before. If you're in a relationship, and I've certainly done this, where it's like, oh yeah, I know that once you did or were this, then I'd be happy, but you know, that's not really quite good enough now. You actually need to do this as well. And you just keep trying to please this other person and you just can't, because that's just how the relationship is set up, versus somebody who goes, I just adore the ground you walk on. I love the fact that you're alive. I'm so grateful I've got you in my life. Now let's go on adventures. Like that's much more conducive to life and joy and good relationships, right? And that's exactly the different modes that we can have with our bodies, you know. And our bodies are the being that we're absolutely guaranteed to be with till our dying breath, literally, right? Nothing else is guaranteed but that. So why not have a relationship that's actually one of nurture and love and respect and understanding, and like giving our bodies more than they need so they can thrive, rather than just giving them, you know, like say a glass of water when I'm thirsty. It's like, well, I'll just have a bottle there and I'll just sit because I know my body needs water on an ongoing basis. And it feels so much better and it feels nurtured. And if I can give gratitude to the water before it even goes in my body, then have rearranged the crystals in there so they even nurture my body more. It's not hard, right? It's just little things. And that's something else too, like with the water. I'm just gonna go off on a tangent now because
I love it.
According to, depending on who you speak to, you know, our body's at least 2/3 water. If you look at something like Vida Austin, she says 99.9 by molecular weight water. She has some really cool stuff about water. She basically says that water is the conscious embodiment of consciousness, which feels so right to me, and I love it so much. So
us too. Yeah, we love her.
Yeah. So water allows consciousness to experience itself as something separate. And like if our bodies are basically mostly water, like the water we take in, most of it came from outer space. So we're actually getting connected to, you know, places in faraway galaxies by drinking this water that we totally take for granted, you know. So wow, how cool is it to drink water? And I was going somewhere with this. Yeah. So the molecules in our bodies, the water molecules in our bodies are meant to like hold the energy or allow the energy to flow through our bodies, literally. So if we hold high frequency states like gratitude, like joy, like love, like connection, like friendship, like gratitude, then those energies are going to flow through our bodies so much more readily. Yeah. If we hold energies like fear or like hate or disconnection or dislike, you've probably seen this too, it disorganizes the water molecules. And that's how those energies then get stuck in our bodies, because it just never really can just move through as an electrical charge. So, you know, one of the things I look at and go, people go, okay, I've got to get healthy, right? I've got to start exercising. I've got to change my diet. I've got to drink more water. I've got to do yoga. And yeah, yes, to all of that. But if you try to eat that elephant, you're going to set yourself up for failure, because it's just too much at once, right? Like you're doing what you're doing now for a reason, right? You ended up here because this seemed to be, you know, the best way you can cope with what you've got going on right now. So pick one thing that's easy to do to create change in your life. I would suggest give your water some gratitude and then sip it during the day. That's not that hard. Yeah. And sipping's better than gulping, because it actually goes into the cells, just as by the way. And then once, 2 or 3 weeks go, you go, I've got this water business done fairly well now. I can do that. That's a new habit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do? Okay, now I'm going to choose a time of day where I do 10 or 15 minutes of exercise, right? I'm going to go for a walk on the block, or I'm going to find a little yoga class, or I'm going to do. So you make change sustainable by making it small and incremental. And if you do that over the course of a year, by the end of that year, you're going to be a completely different person from who you started out as in the beginning of the year, health-wise at least, yeah, or otherwise as well.
That's building momentum.
Yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
I own a fitness company called Momentum Wellness. I named my company Momentum because of this exact concept.
That's right. Yeah, build good habits.
Yep. Yeah. One at a time, and it builds. It exactly like you're talking about. It's like the more you do that one thing, you start to get excited about what's the next thing that I can do to take care of my body, because I feel better now. And then when you feel better, you want to do more things that make you feel better, and it gets easier and easier and more.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a theory, which is that the vast majority of people don't know what it feels like to feel good in their bodies. Like walking down in the street. That's fascinating. Yeah.
We're connected at a soul level for sure. Yeah. So Dan started coaching people, and I did a little bit of nutrition coaching at first. Like I would say to him, like, I don't think people realize how shitty they feel until they begin feeling better. Cause it's like and what I wanted to allude to, but literally, I could listen to you talk all day, Iris, so I'm going to let you continue in 1 second, but you're gifting everybody with a beautiful new paradigm to step into and have a much different relationship with our bodies, that we were never given this opportunity to relate in that way. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. And it's contagious, right? Like you would notice that in your coaching as well, like you start feeling a little bit better, and it's like, that wasn't actually that hard. I can do my next step now. And then you feel so much better. And it's like, this is addictive, this feeling good business, I'm going to get the next habit now. And then as people model that for their friends and their family, the friends and the family might go, wow, you seem so much happier and alive and engaged now. You're not grumpy at me all the time. What's changed? Well, just start by drinking some more water and give it blessings before you do, and that's how you create that ripple. And like, I've been giving this a fair bit of thoughts, like, why have we ended up in the culture that we have in the first place? And I really think it's because people who are empowered, people who feel their bodies, people who know that they're alive, people who can take their body's feedback, they're not easy to govern, right? You're not going to be told what to do. It's like, no, I own my power. You might say that, but yeah, I'm not on board with that. I'm not doing that. So there's people who feel good in their bodies and are present for their lives. They're going to be sovereign beings. And
They're dangerous beings.
very, very dangerous. Even when we do
Mhm.
nothing, we just sit there and ripple, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to talk about this. Yeah, kind of like you mentioned a few times, like dropping into our bodies. And I loved the visual that you gave of most people living like from just like their neck up, if that, like maybe the taste buds, like just their eyes and their ears, and obviously like mental because of our thoughts and our brains. You mentioned the book too, Louise Hay, like that book I think changed my life. I went through I sat down with a journal. I went through everything that I'd ever gone through my life, health wise, mentally, like anxiety, depression, all of these things, wrote them down, and then wrote what she had posed as and I saw it was almost like I saw the Matrix. I saw everything overlapping. I was like, oh my God.
It's wild.
But it was, like I said, it just shifted me into this new paradigm. And what I became was just aware. So like a question, like, how do you get people to like actually understand that our bodies are, sovereign in a way if they're not aware? I've taken my legs and my feet for granted for so long, like the ability to walk, or the ability to talk. I've lost my voice several times if I'm at a concert or I'm so sick, or I've thrown my back out working out as a good thing, and I couldn't even walk. It's debilitating pain. And I just, for myself, I took it for granted. How is it? Is it the awareness that's presented? Is it the gratitude that you allow people to observe first? There might also not be a rhyme or reason because we're all unique individuals.
Yeah, I don't know how you wake people up to that other than modeling it. And I think it's probably the discomfort that drives it first, and that can be physical, emotional, or mental or spiritual discomfort. And some people have a very high pain threshold. A lot of people are very comfortable in their discomfort. Like I've had patients and I have said to them, look, you need 2 more visits and you're going to be awesome. Now, the way I'm wired, if I can do awesome, I'm going to go for awesome. Like there's the 80-20 rule, like 20% of your effort's going to get 80%, but I want the last 20, right? Like, let's go. And those people have stopped coming at that point because the whole idea of actually being awesome was just too scary. It's like, no, I'm on some level they're attached to, you recognize that. On some level they're attached to, the pain or the discomfort that they're feeling. And it's like, well, who am I going to be when I'm not the person who carries this pain anymore? Am I still going to be getting the attention? And that's that whole dysfunctional thing.
And
basically everything.
An identity crisis.
Absolutely. And the thing is, everything that we're looking for on the outside, we actually carry on the inside. Yeah. So like another big thing that I think about a lot is the sense of self-worth. Like people go, oh yeah, no, I can't afford that health thing right now. Like, oh yeah, I know I need 3 visits, but I'll only come once more because that's all I can afford. It's like, okay, so are you currently drinking booze? Are you drinking beer or other alcoholic drinks? Do you think that money would be better invested in your health? It's just a matter of they haven't crashed hard enough to go, okay, well, this thing is going to kill me if I keep going the way I am. Am I prepared to get killed? And some people are. Some people literally would rather die than deal with whatever it is. And that's their journey, that's their choice, and that's part of part of the human experience potentially. But when there's got to be a sense of, okay, no, I've actually had enough of feeling like this now, and that's when they go, okay, so I need to do something differently from what I'm doing now. Like I had my own epiphany, like that wasn't necessarily health related but relationship related, when I was 26, I think, or 27. And I'd been married very briefly to this man who I've recently found out was actually a diagnosed psychopath and an alcoholic, which he didn't disclose beforehand. So you can get where my self-worth was at when I was younger, yeah. And like at that time I looked like a supermodel. Like I should have, I would have had my peak had I only been aware of it. But I was tuned into that frequency of abuse, obviously. And I remember standing there in the kitchen, and he handed me back his wedding rings for the third time and sort of saying, yeah, this relationship is over. And at that moment, I realized, okay, I can now break, or I can go, okay, this is it. I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. And I wasn't prepared to break for anyone. So there must have been a sliver of self-worth in there somewhere that said to me, yeah, no, I'm done with this game. And then from there on, basically, I didn't realize this till later, but I was taking all these things I had thought I had been taught. I'm not even going to say I had been taught. This is what I took away from what happened. I took all these things that I had thought I had been taught about relationships and went, okay, does this actually work in real life? Like, does this actually give me a relationship that I enjoy being in? And if the answer is no, well, I'm going to have to do something differently. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, that must have worked because I've been married for nearly 20 years now, right?
It all happened for a reason.
Exactly, you know, and like I'm grateful that I hit that rock bottom at that young age, because it meant I had a lot of years to unpick and relearn and draw in. And I don't know if we said that before, but like, to start with, yes, it is comfort that drives, okay, this is just so horrible, I want to get out of this. And then once you realize that you're feeling better, then it can become a proactive thing. Wow, like, let me try acupuncture. Let me see if that makes me feel good. Or let me try this new type of massage. Or let me try this new food. Or let me try, you know, so you then start looking for, what are the ways that I can make my body feel better? What are the ways in which I can get my life to feel better? And that's the secret about getting older, right? Life gets so much better if you actually allow yourself to go through some of that processing. You know, like, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. It's probably not going to be all that pretty. But if you put your foot down with yourself and go, this is not how life was meant to feel. I know in my heart that life was actually meant to be one of joy and connection and, you know, fun and enjoyment and pleasure in being here. I'm going to change that around. You know, like, that was the other thing that I grew up with, and I don't know if that resonates with you, but it was almost like the body and physical life was kind of dirty and undesirable, and all the good stuff was sort of heart upwards, you know, like love and spirituality and all that stuff. But again, back to this acceptance business, if you're not prepared to go deep, then you're not going to go high either. And the trick is to, you know, really be in your life and enjoy those little things, like enjoy preparing your food, enjoy those little moments of sitting in your car and looking at the trees, or enjoy the moment of putting your feet on the ground and feeling the bare earth with your feet. That's a really great way to ground and get into your body. You know, to actually enjoy the time that we have here, instead of kind of going from highlight to highlight, you know, like, that's the only time that we often give us our times permission to celebrate or feel joyous. You know, my birthday party or my wedding or my graduation, and that was when I was allowed to feel really good. It's like, so then you just have this highlight reel of your own life, and all the bits in between you've actually missed, when each moment is, when it's gone, it's gone. And each moment gives you an opportunity to experience something magical, you know? That's my thing.
Life.
Say that again.
I said each moment is equally life. There's
exactly
only one moment. There's not
the
good moments and the bad moments. They're all just the same moment.
That's right. Yeah.
You mentioned this sort of idea of almost like thinking of the body as being gross, and I think that's so prevalent, especially in Western culture. And Elise and I were both raised Catholic, where there's and we're not anymore.
Yeah. But are also not opposed to anybody in that religion and learning through that, because it was seriously a very big teacher of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much just ingrained from that culture of the body is shameful, the body is, you know, you're born into sin and you're impure and you need to go find something outside of you that's going to purify you so that you're not gross anymore. And I think that because like so much of like Western culture is built on that, that allows for these narratives of like the body is like, we look at something like cancer or autoimmune disease, and so the body is fighting against itself and the body is torturing you. And it's like, that can't be further from the truth. Like the body is screaming for your attention asking you to please love it back because it's been loving you unconditionally for your whole life. And it's just so beautiful when you can have these reframes and this change in paradigm. It really changes everything.
I just got chills when you said that. I couldn't agree more. And like, look at the language that we use. Oh, I've got to fight this cancer. I've got to fight,
Right.
fight. And it's like, it's funny what you've been doing your whole life and how did that work for you? You know?
Yeah.
Like, is this a time, you know, you've been given a diagnosis, and the problem with that particular diagnosis is then you've like plug into this morphogenic field of this is what happens when you have cancer, right? And it's like, okay, well, so you plugged into that, so you've got that to deal with as well as what's actually going on physically in your body. But like, have we been fighting our own lives so far? And is this the opportunity to say, okay, do you know what? This isn't really working for me. I need to stop. I need to rest. I need to reassess. I need to ask my body what it wants. I need to investigate who can support me through this journey. But how many people go, oh yeah, no, I'm still going to go to work. Like, I know I've got cancer and I've got chemo next week, but I'm still going to go to work. You know, it's like, literally, that's the kind of situation I'd rather die than change. Yeah, change is just so scary. And the thing is, you know, like, just because we judge something as unacceptable doesn't actually mean that it is, you know, like, and I think with cancer it's literally like, where does it sit? Like, I'm thinking about people that I know of who had pancreatic cancer, which is one that takes you out really quickly as a rule, right? So what's the pancreas known for? It's known for dealing with sugar levels, right? So what's that about sweetness in life? Am I allowing myself to feel the sweetness of life, you know, or am I in a situation that, by the way, I created because I said yes at various stages? Am I in a situation where I feel like life is just bitter and hard and difficult and unenjoyable all the time, you know? So with pancreatic, I don't know why pancreatic cancer is coming up anyway. So it's like, if you have been given that diagnosis, give yourself the opportunity to actually experience the sweetness in life. Allow yourself the opportunity to be nurtured, you know, like flip things on their head. I think that's good advice anyway. Like, I've sort of noticed in life, if you get told, oh, X, Y, Z, if you flip that on its head, you're probably closer to truth anyway. You know, like, I am small, dirty, and unlovable and unworthy. It's like, oh no, I am quite a massive big being currently kind of looking out through these eyes, incredibly powerful creator being. I'm totally worthy and lovable, and I'm worthy and I'm loved, you know? But I think, you know, we've been pushed into this victim role, which is basically what we've been talking about. Yep. But a lot of people are scared, I think, of actually being responsible. Yeah. So if we change our lives, suddenly we're responsible and we're not following those things that we were taught we were supposed to want and how life was supposed to unfold. And then what happens with us in our tribe? You know, will we get kicked out of our tribe? But like, being responsible is just the opportunity to actually make a response, like able to respond. Most of us, most of the time, just react. Yeah. So that's back to like living from your sort of your chin up. Like, when we're in that state where our bodies are full of dense energies and we get triggered into particular, you know, reaction patterns that we have always done that haven't worked for us most likely all the time. If we want to be responsible, that means we need to notice we get triggered. So that was one of the things before too, when you mentioned about how do we actually make people aware. It's like, actually stop and observe. Just take a breath. Observe. Okay, so what I think is going on right now is that I'm absolutely certain that that's actually true. You know, could this just be how I'm perceiving it? And the moment you've taken a breath and you've observed, you can then go, okay, so does losing my cool right now really support the outcome I want? Then sometimes it might, you know, sometimes the people with you might go, oh, okay, right, yeah, all right, boundary enforced. Okay, great. Most of the time, it's probably not. So can you then take a breath and go, okay, right now, this triggeredness, if I let it all out, it's probably going to damage more than it's going to create. So, okay, I'm acknowledging it's there. I can feel it in my body. And I'm now going to say this thing that I wouldn't have thought of if I was reacting to get the outcome that I actually want. You know, do I want to blow this relationship up? Well, no. do I want to spend 3 days with the house feeling like a thundercloud? Well, no. So what is the thing that I can say that gets me to where I want to go without creating all that destruction? So, you know, being responsible actually puts you in the driver's seat of your own life. It puts you in the driver's seat of your own creation. And I guess that's the thing. You know, most people prefer somebody else to be in charge because then they're the ones that have got to do something when things go wrong. But you're also giving away your power to an outside entity about feeling good. And is that really what you want?
Before. How's that working for you? Like,
how's that working for you?
Aren't thriving.
Most people aren't thriving. And I'm just noticing using the word, how's that working for you? You know? So how is that creating outcomes in your life? Maybe it might be a better way of putting it. So we can grow from this working ethic all the time.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of touch upon what you've alluded to a lot, but I really want to dive into it is truly being present. As you're saying, lending itself beautifully as a reactionary state versus responsible, that like divine essence. Like the reaction is, you know, Dan and I use the term like the ego. It's coming from that identity. It's reactioning. It's wanting to keep itself the way that it is. Kind of like you mentioned, like people don't want to give up that identity of being sick. That's the ego. It's false. It's an illusion. And if that dies, then it's a crisis. But dropping fully into the presence of ourselves and our bodies, like I'd love to hear what that means for you and how we can truly do that to allow the essence, like this inherent intelligence to, I want to say the word work, but I don't know.
Express yourself.
To serve.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sounds good. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. Like egos actually get a bad rap, in my opinion. You know, like we need a personality, and the ego is there to make sure you pay your bills and, you know, pick your kids up from school and, you know, day-to-day life. Like they're brilliant for that. But yeah, we tend to confuse that with who we actually are. And who we actually are is this sliver of God, or this, you know, ineffable, like that literally means it has no name, essence that we can feel in between all the doingnesses. How do you know when you're really present? I had a moment of that the other day when I was in a social situation. We were just chatting and someone said, oh, so why are you in Sydney right now? And I was almost like I had to kind of go back a few steps and go, yeah, where am I in Sydney? Oh yeah, that's right, I'm here in Sydney for this. So it's literally being, in a way, totally unself-conscious. Yeah. Which is interesting because in that moment, you're more pure self than you are at any other time. It's another one of those inversions.
I'm so curious. So, and I don't mean to interrupt you. The reason why I asked is because I think that there might not be a universal answer for everybody. So for myself, I've been exploring this idea of what it means to be present for quite some time now, probably about a year. And for me, presence is void of a story. It's almost when I quiet my mind enough where I'm not thinking about a past, or I'm thinking about something to do, or I'm thinking about a future that hasn't happened. It's sans that. It's just is. And
that's a beautiful way of putting it.
I to understand if it was something that you're basically saying the same thing.
I use an analogy all the time. I don't know. It makes sense to me when I feel like I get lost in that ego personality. It's like I trying to look at a fish tank, but I bury my head in, like submerge my head in the fish tank. And it's all happening. I'm panicking because I'm out of breath and the fish are going by and I can only see a little bit. I can see one at a time and I'm just like in it and I'm lost and I'm panicked. But if I were to just pull my head out of the fish tank, I could observe all the fish at once. Like, oh, this is beautiful. They're just swimming around. It's just a complete, I don't know, it makes sense to me. Like I think of it, I'll catch myself and be like, okay, like my head's in the fish tank. Like, why don't I come out and look at the whole thing?
I actually love both of your analogies. They're really cool. And I agree, like if you're in ego, then this little mind's going, yuck, 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 you know, this is right. That, and the thing about that voice is that it can say two things that are totally contradictory with equal amount of conviction and as if this is the truth right now. And you're going to go, you know, how can those both be true at the same time? And I guess like they could, but yeah, there's a difference. Like I find that the way to tap into that is like, it's actually living in your heart, which is another one of those cliche things that are true, and like, how do you actually do it? And the way you access that is like, you ask yourself a question, and then you pay attention to that very first thing that drops in, and it's often quiet, and it can be a sensation in your body, it might be a phrase, it depends on how you're wired, or it could be an image. And there's peace with that, there's stillness with that, there's ease with that, there's you just a breath out with that. And then the mind goes, but it's like, hang on to that first thing that happened, like that first sense of, and it is a sense of beingness, isn't it? It's just a sense of, and then, that mind will often kick in after that. And it's a practice thing too. Like,
and it's
the more you practice, the more you practice, the better it gets. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's so simplistic, our higher self, or whatever you'd like to call it. It knows. It's not ruminating, it's not thinking, it knows. And it's the smaller mind or ego that's like, wait, it can't be that simple. So like you said, it's the chatter, it's everything going on.
And that's back to inversion, like, why do we think everything has to be so complicated? Like, if you pare it back, it's actually not. Like, the thing that blows my mind, right, is that, so we're this like hologram of this sliver of God, or this hologram of the universe that's currently having this human being experience of being separate, living in a body on planet Earth. Right. But what are bodies? What's planet Earth? It's equally just a sliver of God. And it's just, energy that's been configured in a particular way to work in this way. So we're like the sliver of God, living in this sliver of God and walking on this sliver of God. And so it's this like incredible bit of theater that's going on out there, with the express invitation of remembering who we actually are. Right. And it's just so incredibly put together. And I hope I'm not offending anybody with their religion, but it's like, everything is energies, and that energy to me is God, or it's love, or it's life. They're just different words for the same thing. And when you come from that point of view of, my body is my friend, my body is this energy being that's here to afford me this experience of being a separate being in 3D physicality. And like, I actually think that we dropped into bodies because being in bliss all the time for eternity probably gets boring. Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Like,
yep.
I'm going to have this experience of being separate, and I'm going to have this experience of feeling rejected when I could never be rejected. Like, I am part of everything. So how could I possibly be rejected? And I'm going to have this experience with other humans and my own body. And I'm going to have this incredible, theater that then deepens my understanding and my appreciation. So how can we not treat our bodies like they're precious and they're sacred? They're sacred spaces to be living in. How can we not treat our earth as a precious, incredibly intelligent, diverse, nurturing place to have this experience? Like, how can you conceive of the idea that earth is dirty or that our body is dirty? Like, they're made of the essence of God, Anyway.
Oh my gosh, so beautifully said. I feel like such a epic way to almost like wrap up this conversation. I mean, Iris, it's just, oh my God, you have filled my tank completely. And I feel like I could just listen to you talk, the resonance, the truth that just, I feel like there's something to this. And I know that you said, and we said, there is nothing to knock anybody's religion by any means, but there's something that you and Dan and I that believe in that just rings true. And there's an acceptance and allowance that I've never felt from any other place or, modality of religion that I've explored. So I thank you for your truth and your honesty and all of the wisdom that you shared. But I want to make sure, did we cover everything that's on your heart that you'd want to speak to the listeners? Is there anything that we missed?
Well, clearly not. But but I will just, I just want to go back to gratitude for a moment, because for me personally, that was the big turnaround thing. So I chose to use gratitude as a practice when I was about 33. And the incredible thing about gratitude is that, apart from the fact it's like a super high frequency in your body and it's a beautiful place to be, it's also magical because what you focus on grows, right? So the more you focus on things to be grateful for, the more things will show up for you to be grateful for, right? And some of it's just a change of lens, just as a change of perspective, but there's nothing just about a change in perspective, right? Like a change in perspective can be the difference between life and death, literally. So, and the part that's funny about this story is that I have a friend at the time who chose to forgiveness as a practice. She got a lot of things to forgive people for. And I was like,
I believe that too.
What you focus on grows. But like, I'm not knocking forgiveness as something to do, absolutely not. And who doesn't want to forgive? It's the ego. Back to that conversation. But I really, really highly recommend gratitude as a practice. And there's a few different ways you can go about it. So, so this was a practice already. And you're embodying gratitude thoroughly when you're literally welling up in your eyes with just this sense of, I am so blessed. Yeah. So if you're just saying thank you, that's great. And it changes the water molecules and changes your focus. But I would encourage people to really get into that state of really deep gratitude. It will change your life. And a friend of mine was running this workshop and he was saying, do a gratitude diary. So I did. And I started out with, okay, today I'm grateful for bullet point my husband, bullet point my dog, bullet point my house. That didn't work, right? Then I changed it to writing I am grateful for, and then writing everything I was grateful for. And the thing is said at least 3 times, but by the time you get good at this, there might be 2 pages worth, I am grateful for, I am grateful for. By writing by hand, I am grateful for, you're actually creating more nerve paths to gratitude in your nervous system, so that just by writing I'm grateful for without then necessarily saying what that is that's making you feeling grateful, you're actually creating this energy of gratitude in your body and in your life as you speak. And again, the more grateful you are, the more you will have to be grateful for. The more grateful you are, the better your body will function, because the body will carry this energy and all the cells are going to feel like, oh, I feel so appreciated, I feel so valued, I feel so loved, I feel so nurtured, I feel so, and that's the juice you want to marinate your body in, isn't it? That's how your cells are going to be functional and vital and alive and deal with any little, thing. Just go kick it to the curb, You're breathing in pollution, I've got you, because I know that you love every single cell in my lungs and you're so grateful for them doing their incredible job, and you know that your immune system's going to be switched on, like what is cancer and what is autoimmune disease? It's basically, not recognizing self from not self. It's not recognizing these patterns and beliefs and behaviors that you've been taught by other people that aren't yours, energies from other people ancestrally that you're carrying that you don't need to. And what's the antidote to all of that? It's gratitude. So I would encourage everybody to start practicing gratitude in a way that makes sense to them. I would definitely, encourage a gratitude journal. I think I did a gratitude journal for a whole year, and it was amazing. And the thing with gratitude too, I've had quite a few laps around the sun by now, and now I know if I'm in something that feels really difficult right now, I know that down the track, I'm going to be grateful for this experience because of the layer it's going to have peeled back, because of the truth, the closer to the truth, my own core essence, I will have walked into, the more magnificent I will be as a result of having had this experience. So I can actually be gratitude sort of in advance for the thing that's really uncomfortable right now. And it means that it's easier to get through. Like, I'm not attached to, oh my God, this hurts so much right now. It's like, yeah, it really hurts. It's really unpleasant. It's really uncomfortable. I don't like sitting in this, but I know it'll have been worth it. So literally, if you get one thing away from this conversation is gratitude, and really practice this as a conscious practice for maximum benefit. And, some days it's just thank you, and that's okay too. That's part of the human experience. But again, what you focus on grows. I'm just going to divert again. So at the beginning of 2020, I chose peace as my word for the year. And I do a fair bit of yoga. So every time I did yoga, I would do it with an intention of peace. And I noticed at the end of 2 years that peace was just an energy that was with me all the time. You know, it didn't matter what was going on in the outside. Peace was just there, and it was mine, and that's what I was emanating. So I know this stuff works. You know, it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be hard. You know, most things that's going to transform your life will actually only take 2 to 3 minutes to start with, you know, and then that'll become your MO, and then you'll be doing it all the time. But to create that habit, it's not difficult, it's not hard, and you can absolutely do it, and you'll feel so much better for it, and be a brighter, shinier human being in our world. Like, isn't that what we're here for?
Oh my God. I believe so for sure. I feel like that closing message was absolutely just so beautiful and a really great reminder. Yes, Dan and I did a gratitude journal. Actually, I probably started one around the age of 33 as well. That 33 is a magical number, I think. And yeah, it was beautiful. And then because people too, and this we'll end with this, because people, they do like tasks, right? Oh, it's something to do, it's to do, but then it kind of can get monotonous. But once you do it for, 6 months, a year and a half, then I didn't need to write it in my journal anymore. It just becomes a part of you, because like you said about the peace, the gratitude is within us. We're just remembering that it's there.
Yeah. It's you're embodying it, and you know what it feels like, and you can recognize it when you come across it.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, Iris, it is, just like I said, been an absolute pleasure to have you. Where can people find you if they'd like to learn more about your, teachings or workshops, everything? I know that you've got some online stuff. So please let us know what we can put in the show notes here for people to find you.
So the central point is my website, which is just my name, irisangellys.com, and there's links there to Facebook and to my new Patreon community that I'm opening up soon, to the workshop events that I run that can be done in person or on Zoom. My other favorite place to go to find me is my YouTube channel, so at Iris Angellys. I have a ton of different meditations on there that you can use to explore what life might have to offer you other than what you've known so far. I've also got some poems on there, and I've got little snippets that I'm reading out of my book. So my YouTube channel I'm quite active on, and it's funny, I go back sometimes and listen to one of my meditations, and it's like, that's really cool. I really like what I created there. That's a really nice experience. Same with the books. It's like, wow, that's really well put. I'm quite impressed with my own effort here, and clearly, I'm the vessel for the message, but still, it's really cool. It's to go back and go, I really like my work.
Like what you're describing is the epitome of service to others, but also service to self. Your birthing message is just as important for you.
That's right. Yeah. So website's probably the easiest way to find me, and then go from there.
Amazing. We are going to put all of that in the show notes, because we're big advocates and big fans of you, Iris. Again, thank you so much for deeply inspiring us. And I guarantee you, our listeners today, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had such a lovely time discussing deep stuff with you today. It's been wonderful. And I can see that you two create bright ripples everywhere you go too. So thank you for being my brothers and sisters on the other continent across the big pond that we're on.
Yes, thank you.